A new revelation tonight regarding recent murders linked to domestic violence. Police investigations have revealed that most of the perpetrators involved in these crimes are non-nationals. It's just one of a number of elements relating to domestic violence that lawmen are actively seeking to address. Shane Seeley has the story.
While crime in Barbados is down in the region of 4 to 5%, there's been serious concern in recent time about a surge in domestic violence. Now, the acting commissioner of police, Tyrone Griffith, he spoke to the media today about the issue and told us how the Royal Barbados Police Force is addressing domestic violence. The acting commissioner started with this revelation.
There's one thing that we noticed about much of those murders as a result of domestic disputes, and you will see there's a cultural factor. You will notice that a number of those murders involve non-nationals, and I think that is something that we have to look at.
Commissioner Griffith is confident that lawmen in the Family Conflict Unit are up to the task of dealing with such cases.
Wherever there are matters that seem to persist, we are asking that they be referred to that unit and that they can be followed closely and dealt with in the best way. They are members of the force and they work closely with organizations like NOW, and it doesn't take away, it doesn't mean that members of the wider force doesn't have their part to play. They still have to respond to every report that is made in relation to domestic abuse. But where we see trends, we are hoping that those matters will be referred to that unit so that they can follow through on those matters.
But the top cop has made clear that the force cannot deal with the problem of domestic abuse alone.
Domestic abuse is a deep-seated problem, which I don't think only the police can have a part to play. I think the wider society, the other social agencies that need to come on board as far as that's concerned. We are in the law enforcement side of things, but it's not all about law enforcement. And don't care how tight law enforcement is, there will be instances of murders being committed.
Now, the acting commissioner is joined by his regional counterparts here at DV South Winds for the annual general meeting of the Association of Caribbean Commissioners of Police. Here they will be discussing that issue of domestic violence and other problems related to crime facing the region. I'm Shane Seeley for CBC News.
Meantime, the man accused of committing the latest murder, Jarek Tudor, has been remanded to prison. 29-year-old Tudor of Fairfield, Black Rock, appeared in the District D Magistrates Court this afternoon. He was not required to plead to the indictable offence and was remanded until December 19th to appear in the same court. Tudor is accused of killing 22-year-old Crystal Lovell, whose body was discovered outside of her Highland St. Thomas home by family members on Sunday night. Lovell was stabbed in a domestic dispute with a man at about 10 minutes past 9 that night. The president of the NUPW says that union is not waiting for public sector workers to be laid off and will soon be tabling innovative measures to government to reduce expenditure, increase revenue, and keep its members employed. All this amid speculation that government may be sending home 3,000 public sector workers. Walter Maloney says the measures were discussed at the National Union of Public Workers General Council meeting last evening. He said a planned meeting with the civil service today has been postponed. Mr. Maloney said that while no official word has come from government about laying off staff, he said it cannot be business as usual.
The fact is, if government's revenue continues to drop and expenditures continues to rise, something will have to give. But we are hoping that there are other ways outside of the massive layoffs that can try to restrict or to at least to stop the hemorrhaging that is happening in the economy. And so we don't see sending home people as a first resort. We see that as a last resort, because we still have to make certain that people can find work. So although I have not heard it officially from the government stating that they're sending home anybody, the fact remains is though that we have to be almost ready for any eventuality, and any responsible union, that is what they should be doing.
Coastal risk management is imperative for small islands like Barbados. This from Prime Minister Fundle Stewart during debate on the $13.3 million resolution for the Coastal Zone Management Unit. He wants Barbadians to start taking the messages relating to climate change seriously. The Prime Minister says the mounting evidence relating to climate change and the arguments about its existence and danger are real, based on recent weather events in Europe and parts of Asia this past year.
The issues of global warming, the issues of sea level rise are real issues for small island developing states. And therefore, it is only proper that a country like Barbados should do precisely what the government is doing, precisely what, dare I say, successive governments have been trying to do in recent times. That is to pay some attention to the risk that attach to our coastline.
And during wrap-up of that debate, Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe warned that stiff penalties are coming for people who continue to litter the island's streets. He says there are many challenges with which the Sanitation Service Authority has to deal, including residents disregarding pickup schedules and blatantly littering along the roads.
We are committed to ensuring that a beautiful Barbados is not a myth. It is not something just captured on a postcard, but it is a reality of our lives. And therefore, as a ministry responsible for the maintenance and the governance of our environment, I am going to announce to the country very shortly the advent of a piece of legislation called the Environmental Management Act, where some very stiff penalties will be attached to those kinds of practices because they cannot be had in this country.
That resolution was passed. Now, Health Minister John Boyce wants Barbadians to eat the invasive lionfish as a way of controlling and eradicating it. He says his checks have revealed that the people of Curacao eat the lionfish as a delicacy, noting that once it's properly prepared, it tastes like snapper.
I gather that once you take the skin off this fish, it's a very rugged skin, of course. Once you take the skin off this fish, the meat that exposes itself, sir, is akin to the best of snapper. So I would endear this species to our more brave fishermen and assure them that there is information which we can research, or which with help we can get in regards to taking full advantage of it.
Tourism Minister Richard Seeley is assuring Barbadians that the construction of the new cruise pier facility at Sugar Point won't be detrimental to the coral reef in that location. He says government will be removing the coral reef from that location and placing it elsewhere to ensure it's protected once the project starts in earnest.
That project is certainly being done consistent with the same vision and philosophy of the CZMU. And the very first item on the agenda, this is of course after the geotechnical investigations which have been completed, is to make sure that we can extract the coral that is in the vicinity of where the work is planned for the reclamation works, as well as the actual cruise piers. They're going to be 3-finger piers, 2 in the first phase. But we're going to move all of the coral out of the way, in other words, extract it.
There's a suggestion from MP for St. John, Mara Thompson, to develop a cave that runs under the St. Mark's Church in College Savannah as a tourist attraction.
Have been made to understand that this is a rather huge cave and that it runs under the church, and that it could actually be developed as yet another of our tourist products in much the same way that Harrison's Cave has become what it is now. And there are also nature trails in the area, all of which would appeal to the naturalist tourists.
Government has gone to Parliament to back a money resolution for $5.5 million to guarantee a loan from RBC Royal Bank Barbados Limited to cover some of the debts of Hotels Resorts Limited, popularly known as GEMS. The resolution was piloted by Finance Minister Chris Sinclair, who told the Chamber that the hotel, since its inception, has racked up losses of over $300 million, while having assets of almost $130 million. He says by the time the DLP took responsibility for GEMS in 2008, many of the properties had deteriorated, with the company running several overdrafts. But he says several of the properties are recovering, like Savannah and Time Out at the Gap, which have been leased to a private entity, MW Sons Resorts Limited.
They stuck with it. And because they have stuck with it, they have seen a steady improvement in the operations, and they really have done a very good job. I mean, if we visit Savannah Hotel now, it really is looking like what it should be, or should have been, in terms of upkeep. And still there is some way to go, but it is a substantially better and more improved property.
Government should have tried to get a better price on the Almond Beach property from its former owners, Neil and Massey. Opposition leader Mia Motley says the steps taken by government to get the property developed have come nearly 2 years too late and have put government under pressure to pay a high price for the property.
It is our view, therefore, that that price which the government has chosen to pay has not been the best price that the government could have gotten the property at. So that you are paying $100 million for a property that ought to be discounted from its valuation by at least 30% being a distressed property. And then thereafter, a further discount by reason of the fact that there are aspects of the loan that more likely than not have been written off by Scotiabank for the benefit of Neil and Massey.
MP for St. James Central Kerry Simmons has called on government to disclose fully to Parliament and Barbadians the details of the Memorandum of Understanding with Sandals outlining concessions to that company.